You're listening to WZNR, Midnight Broadcast, Voice in the Dark Edition. I'm still here for now, and if you're still out there with a pair of headphones or a dusty bedside radio, then maybe we've both outlasted the noise. We were going to do a segment tonight on missing weather balloons or something equally dull, but then around 10:40, an alert dropped into the station feed. An internal bulletin, not the usual scripted stuff. It was marked as a science update from the Global Polar Network, the kind of organization that doesn't usually get involved with us down here on the dial. It was flagged anomaly under ice signal. Naturally, I had to read it twice. Now, I'm no expert in seismology or ice core analytics, but I've got just enough curiosity to ruin a perfectly good night's sleep. And this isn't some vague reading or broken sensor. It's a report from a multinational research facility sitting on the edge of the Ross Ice Shelf in Antarctica. Apparently, one of their subglacial radar systems picked up a rhythmic pulse. Not just any pulse, radio frequency. And not from the sky, not from space, from beneath. They confirmed it at least twice, triangulated it using seismic microphones and something called a magnetotelluric array, which I had to look up. It's real. It's a fancy way of listening to the Earth's skin. The signal is coming from deep under the ice. For context, we've detected natural signals before, such as ice shifting, pockets of methane releasing, and strange sounds from the core. But this one is different. This one is repeating. It's structured. It's slow, faint, but regular. If you're thinking what I'm thinking, you're probably mistaken. This isn't about aliens. At least, not yet. But it's enough to make the scientific community break sweat. Earlier today, the station's lead geophysicist, a Dr. Elaine Mora, released a single line in her team's preliminary report. The structure of the pulse indicates intelligence, but not intention. Whatever that means. Of course, no one is going public with it. Neither the networks nor the universities are. There's just quiet chatter behind sealed conference room doors and on encrypted channels. But every now and then, something slips through, and someone like me, someone who still believes in AM static and dusty airwaves, gets to hear it before it's cleaned up. I've been trying to get someone from the facility on the line, but all I've got are redirected calls and out-of-service tones. The kind of silence that feels deliberate. I don't know what they found. I don't think they do either. But something is down there under 2 miles of ancient ice. Something that's sending signals. Not constantly, just once every few minutes. Like it's testing, tapping, feeling the edge of something. I'll be here all night, keeping an ear out. If you're listening and you've heard about this, if you've picked anything up on your own shortwave rigs, I want to hear from you. We may not be able to make sense of it yet, but we can mark the moment. A point in time. Something is speaking beneath Antarctica. And someone. Maybe it's just heard it for the first time. About an hour has passed since the first report came in, and I'm still here trying to make sense of this signal from the coldest place on Earth. I've been scouring the corners of the internet, old forums, retired frequency maps, and contact from my college radio days who never stopped scanning the sky. Something strange is happening. People are hearing it. Not just in Antarctica now, not just in the research base. A guy outside Fairbanks said he picked up a low, pulsing tone on his homemade long-wave antenna. Says it's not on any known band. Another from Perth, in Australia, caught the same pattern 30 minutes later. He sent me a recording, and I'll be honest, I don't know what I expected. It's quiet at first, just static, the kind you get when your signal's too weak, too far gone. But under that, there's a kind of throb. Not mechanical, not quite natural either. Almost like breath. It comes in slow bursts of 3 short pulses followed by a long pulse, then silence. It repeats every 30 seconds or so. It's always the same. There is no distortion, no drift. You could tell it wasn't made by chance. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Ice shifting can make weird noises. Glaciers groan. The earth hums. But this isn't a sound carried through air or water. It's a radio pulse. Tight, compressed, and coming from a very specific point nearly 2 miles beneath the Antarctic surface. The Global Polar Network hasn't updated their official feed, but someone leaked part of a system's readout. A little snippet of internal chatter between 2 engineers. Phase pattern repeating. We're not detecting bounce, its original source. Are we sure it's not reflected? No, the source is the ground. That's when I stopped smiling. Because it's one thing to hear noise. It's another thing entirely to realize the Earth might be transmitting. I don't want to jump to conclusions. That's not what this show is about. We're not here to sensationalize. We just talk. We listen. But I can't shake the feeling that we've opened a door we didn't know was there. There's an eerie calm between the pulses, too. It's as if the signal isn't meant to be heard in full. The gaps seem to convey as much as the bursts. Have you ever stood in a big, empty church with no one speaking and still felt like something was being said? It's like that. I've been staring at my equipment, at the spectrum analysis, and it's the same every time. Identical timing. No drift, no Doppler effect, no echo. Which means either it's perfectly stationary or it's not bound by the same kinds of motion we expect. One listener messaged me to say that the pattern reminded him of Morse code. It's not Morse code, but he might be onto something. There's a rhythm, a logic, maybe even a purpose. If that's true, then someone or something is down there. And it's not shouting, it's waiting. So I want to keep the line open. I'll stay here. We'll ride this thing out together. And if you've got the equipment, tune in to 6.78 kilohertz. That's where the signal's been bleeding through for some folks. Just listen. Maybe it's nothing, but maybe, just maybe, it's something that's been trying to talk to us for a very, very long time. I just got off the phone with someone from the station. He wouldn't give a name, wouldn't even confirm which country he was working for. But his voice told me everything I needed. He sounded like a man who had seen something he didn't know how to unsee. He kept his sentences short, clipped, the way people talk when they're not sure if the line is clean or if the air around them is listening. I asked what they'd found, what they'd actually found down there. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, it's not the ice. The signal, it's bouncing through the ice, but it's not coming from it. There's a cavern. Huge. Naturally sealed. We mapped it weeks ago, but the signal started before we ever broke through. I asked if it could be geological, just another anomaly. He said no, I don't think it's geological. I think it's alive. That's when the line clicked. Not ended, not hung up, just clicked, as if something had stepped between us. Now, I'm used to strange calls. This job attracts them. Nighttime radio's a magnet for the weird, the half-dreamed, the paranoid. But this one was different, because he didn't sound unstable. He sounded afraid, and he wasn't alone. I'm hearing more and more from people with similar stories, mostly scientists, lab technicians, and communications officers. People with clearances. They say the signal has layers. Beneath the main pulse, they say, is a second pattern. Fainter, older. One guy who claims he worked on the data analysis team said they ran the waveform through translation software. Language modeling. The results didn't make sense in any human language, but there was enough structure to suggest syntax and grammar. Grammar. There was even repetition. Here's the thing that chilled me. He said the signal doesn't sound like it's talking to us. It sounds like it's talking to itself, as if it forgot how, as if it's been trying to remember its own voice. There was one message he read to me before he hung up. Just a short string of phonetics they decoded into rough English. It said, I was broken. I was left. I am learning. Let that sink in for a moment. Whatever's down there, if it's even something we can describe, isn't broadcasting the way we think it is. It's not sending out warnings or greetings. It's rediscovering how to communicate. And we just happen to be listening. There's more. I wasn't going to bring this up, but enough people have mentioned it now that I feel like I have to. Voices. Several callers from completely different parts of the world said they've heard voices in the static. Not loud, not direct, just at the edge of hearing, like breath against glass. Some say it's their own voice delayed. Others hear someone else entirely. One woman in Glasgow said she heard her mother's voice, even though her mother passed years ago. Just one sentence. You're almost through. She said it didn't sound comforting. I don't know what we've uncovered beneath Antarctica. I don't think it's a structure or a creature or even a consciousness in any way we'd recognize. I think it's a memory. Not ours. Not the Earth's. Something older. Deeper. Something buried so long it forgot it was ever alive. Until now, I'll stay on the air. As long as I can. Call me if you hear anything, whether you've caught the signal or it starts sounding familiar. Because whatever's beneath the ice, it's starting to remember. And that might be the most dangerous part. I don't know how to explain what just happened. The signal, it changed. I've been monitoring that low hum since it first slipped into the spectrum hours ago. It's been steady, like a heartbeat drawn across cold steel. But about 20 minutes ago, there was a shift. The rhythm didn't change. The timing stayed exact. But the tone grew warm. That probably doesn't make sense. How can a sound feel warm? But that's the only way I can describe it. It stopped feeling mechanical. It started feeling curious. I don't think it's broadcasting anymore. I think it's listening. I don't mean in a paranoid way, like they're bugging us. I mean, the signal seems to be responding now. It's not in direct conversation, just subtle mirroring behavior. I asked the question out loud, not into the mic, just out of habit. What do you want? 10 seconds later, the static pulsed. Once. It could have been coincidence. I told myself that. But I tried again, different phrasing. Are you trying to communicate? And this time, 2 short pulses. Again, could be noise. Could be my sleep-deprived brain making connections that aren't there. But I don't think so. And I'm not the only one. A linguist from one of the research hubs messaged me. Said they've started feeding the pulse into a language prediction model. Something designed to simulate ancient dialects. Mostly theoretical stuff, barely a step above guesswork. But the software's mapping patterns. Not words, not yet. But syntax. There's form here. Order. Structure. Which brings us to what's beneath the ice. They've drilled down. Not all the way, though. Just enough to breach the uppermost layer of the subglacial cavern. This happened quietly. There were no announcements. However, one of the crew members leaked a photo of a dimly lit shaft descending into darkness. The caption read, "It's not rock. It's not ice. It's smooth. Smooth. Not naturally eroded. Not carved by water or time. Smooth like something built it that way, or something moved through it." A day before that breach, there was no signal. Since they opened the shaft, the pulses haven't stopped. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Some researchers say they can hear things inside the structure, not just through the radios. It's a kind of vibration, not exactly sound. It's more like the air is being shaped into meaning. One technician collapsed near the breach point. No wounds, no trauma, but he kept whispering over and over, "It's beneath the words." They sedated him. This isn't just about geology anymore. It never was. There's something beneath that ice that isn't passive. It isn't inert. It might not even be physical in the way we understand, but it's aware, and it's adapting. You know those old stories, the myths about gods beneath the sea, sleeping for eons, waiting for the right sound to wake them? What if this isn't a god? What if it's something older? Something that never needed to sleep? Something that simply waited until we got close enough to hear it? And now that it knows we're listening, it's learning how to speak. I'll be here, tuning in, watching the gaps between pulses, because that's where the meaning lives. Not in the noise, but in the silence that follows it. Let me know if you hear it, too, if you feel that strange warmth in your chest when the signal pulses. We've crossed some kind of threshold tonight, and there's no going back. There's been a breach. I just received unofficial confirmation from someone claiming to be part of the secondary crew near the main shaft. This afternoon, they cracked the ice layer and broke into what they thought was just an air pocket beneath a few hundred feet of solid crust. But it wasn't empty. He described it as a cavern, wide enough to hold a stadium, with walls that glowed faintly in the dark. Not with light, with color. He said there were tones in the stone, patterns, almost musical, layered into the walls themselves. They thought it might be some kind of mineral fluorescence. That was before the pressure door failed. You see, they didn't go in through the cavern wall. They bored through vertically, using precision drills, isolating sections as they went. But the pressure, something about it was off. They had gauges. They monitored everything. It should have been stable. But the moment they hit a certain layer, it shifted. The air pressure equalized too quickly. A soft pop. That's how he described it. Like the earth exhaled, and then the signal changed. I got a loop of the moment it happened. I'll describe it because playing it wouldn't help. It's not about sound anymore. It's about feeling. The pulse, which had been steady all night, broke rhythm. It fractured into a scatter of tones, then went silent. For 10 seconds, nothing, not even static. And then it came back. But it wasn't a pulse. It was a voice. Not words, not really. just the shape of them, like language spoken underwater, like syllables half-formed and lost in current. Whatever it was a machine noise. The researcher I spoke with said 2 people near the breach collapsed immediately, not because of a blast or a fall. They just dropped, still breathing, eyes open, but unresponsive. According to the crew, one of them started speaking in his sleep, not in English. It wasn't in any language they could identify. They tried to record it, but the audio kept corrupting. They tried to write it down, but the letters came out backward, as if the hand had forgotten how to form shape. One word, though, kept coming through, scribbled again and again into the edges of a notebook left near the man's cot. Listen, I don't think this thing is trying to hurt us. Not directly. I think it's trying to be known. Not seen. Not touched. Not even understood. Just known. After millennia of being trapped under ice, or perhaps not trapped at all, but merely waiting, something finally felt the brush of attention. And now it's answering. I've had listeners writing in from all over, saying they've begun hearing the signal without equipment. No radios, no antennas, just hearing it, like a pressure behind the ear. A tone just out of reach, like a thought you can't quite finish. One man, a piano teacher from Maryland, said he dreamed of playing a piece he'd never learned. He woke up with the melody still in his head, and when he played it, it matched the frequency of the Antarctic signal. We're not just picking something up. It's reaching out, and I don't think the ice was sealing it in. I think it was shielding us. Now that it's open, it's only going to grow. Louder, closer, deeper. So if you feel that pressure in your chest when you close your eyes tonight, don't panic. Don't run. Just remember, you didn't find it. It found you. The phrase is repeating now, over and over. Same cadence, same tone, like a mantra embedded into the static. We are still here. That's not paraphrasing. That's what it's saying, those exact words. Not a translation, not an interpretation. Actual, audible English. It started right after the breach when the cavern was exposed. The initial voice, which sounded like breath through water, began to sharpen. It became clearer. By the time they set up a low-frequency recording device inside the shaft, the phrase had already begun. 3 pulses, then the words, "We are still here." No inflection. No emotion, just a steady rhythm. I can't stop hearing it. I played the clip twice earlier, alone in the booth, with the speakers turned low. The second time, I swear I heard something underneath it. A whisper beneath the whisper. Not another phrase. Not language at all. It was me. My voice. Not live. Not recorded. But unmistakably mine, buried inside that transmission. Repeating something I haven't said. Not yet. I haven't told anyone that part. Not until now, but I'm not the only one cracking under the sound. There are unconfirmed reports of crew members fleeing the outpost on foot. They are heading into the ice fields. They are heading into -50 wind chills with no clear destination. No destination. They left behind gear, maps, and even boots in some cases. They just walked into the white silence. One of the last logs before communications fully cut out came from a communications technician named Lydia. Her file was included in a leaked internal brief, and I would like to share some of what she said before going silent. The signal is too consistent, not just in timing, in tone, like it's being recited, not spoken, not invented, remembered. It doesn't feel like something reaching out. It feels like something remembering how. That word keeps coming back, remembering. Whatever this is, whatever presence is speaking from under the ice, it's not new. It didn't just emerge because we arrived. It was already there, already aware. We're not activating it. We're reminding it. That's what chills me more than anything else. This isn't an ancient machine rebooting. This is something that once knew how to speak, knew how to think, and forgot, until now. And now that the message is clear, now that the words are coherent, I can't help but wonder, who is it talking to? Us? The world? Something else entirely? We are still here. It's not a greeting. It's not a threat. It's a statement, a proof of life, a cosmic pulse check sent out not just to the living, but to anything that might still be listening. I keep thinking of the old myths, not the ones about gods or monsters, but the quieter ones, the ones that say the earth itself holds memory. That stone remembers. That ice records everything it touches. What if that's not metaphor? What if what we found is a kind of memory, alive, reactive, intelligent? What if it's not a being, but a thought that never stopped thinking? People say thoughts fade when no one remembers them. But what if some thoughts just go cold? What if they freeze so deep they outlast the things that thought them? And now, we've unearthed it. I don't think this is the end of the world, but I do think it's the end of being alone. If you've heard the message, if it started speaking in your dreams, if it's begun stitching your voice into its words, tell me. Tell someone, because the message has been received. And now, it's starting to answer. The feed from Antarctica has gone dark. Entirely. No pings. No data bursts. Not even the low-frequency hum that's been our constant companion for the last 12 hours. Just silence. I don't mean static. I mean an absence of everything. Dead air. It's as if the signal itself was erased, not interrupted or jammed. I've been refreshing the monitoring page non-stop. The data window is frozen. Last timestamp reads 3:11 Universal Time coordinated. After that, nothing. It's hard to describe the feeling of something that's been everywhere suddenly not being there at all. I keep flicking between stations, checking ham channels, scanning the low-band spectrum. It's like it was never there to begin with. But we know it was. Dozens of people heard it. More than that. They recorded it, described it, felt it like pressure on the chest. Now it's gone. Not quiet. Not distant. Gone. I think the message was completed. I've been going through transcripts, notes, voicemails from listeners, trying to make sense of what it might have meant. There's one quote I keep coming back to, part of a final log from inside the Antarctic base. It came from someone named Martin, a researcher. Final line of his message. It isn't just a message. It's a memory trying to remember itself. I've thought about that for hours. What does it mean for a memory to become self-aware? For something long buried, something that didn't even know it existed anymore, to begin reconstructing its own shape? It reminds me of when you wake up from a dream and for a second, you don't remember where you are. Then your name returns, your body, your sense of place. What if that's what this thing was going through? Not waking up, but remembering that it had once been awake. And now that it's fully remembered, us, this world, itself, there's nothing left to say. Or maybe it doesn't need the signal anymore. Maybe the signal was just the beginning, a throat clearing, a ripple meant to test the skin of the world. And now that it knows the world can feel it, it's moving closer. I can't prove that. Of course I can't. But there's something wrong with the air tonight. Inside the station, time feels slow. Not in terms of time. Time still ticks, but in terms of weight. Everything feels heavier. My arms, my voice, even thought, like I'm pulling each word from something deep and cold. I call an old friend of mine, someone who works with magnetics and geophysics, smart guy, way out of my league. He said their instruments started acting strange about an hour after the signal stopped. Compass needles drifting, magnetometers peaking and falling without cause. He said something that stuck with me. He said, if I didn't know better, I'd say the Earth's memory is reorganizing. I asked what that meant. He laughed quietly, said he didn't know, and then he hung up. I don't think we're just dealing with a signal, or even a presence. I think the Earth has been holding something, a secret deep below the surface. Not a creature, not a god, a resonance. And we were the trigger, not because we did anything wrong, but because we came too close. We drilled, we listened, we asked a question, and something long forgotten remembered how to answer. Now it's quiet, but it's not over. I don't think silence is always peace. Sometimes silence is breath. The moment before you speak. The moment after you're born. I think we're standing in that moment now. And I don't know what's going to speak next. But I'll be here when it does. I've been staring at my reflection for almost 20 minutes. I don't even know why I started. I just caught my face in the studio window during a quiet moment. And something about it about me. Looked off. Not in the physical sense. I still look like me. Tired, pale, a little more wrinkled around the eyes than I'd care to admit. But there was something behind my eyes. Something slow. Watching. Not watching me. Watching with me. I blinked, and for just a second. No more than that. I thought the reflection didn't blink back. I know how that sounds. Sleep-deprived minds can play tricks. But the feeling hasn't left. It's not just a mirror. It's my thoughts. The way they're folding in on themselves, like echoes in a canyon. I keep circling the same memories, not because they're important, but because they've started bleeding into the present. Tonight, for the first time in years, I remembered the basement of the house I grew up in. How it smelled, the dampness, the tiny window that let in a sliver of moonlight every third month. I used to sit there with my father's old shortwave set, just turning dials, scanning the bands for strange voices. I was 9 years old when I first heard something I couldn't explain. A pattern, low and slow, not unlike what's been coming from Antarctica. I never found it again, but I remember that sound now. I remember the cold in my chest, the sense that I wasn't alone in that basement, even though the house was silent. What if that wasn't imagination? What if the signal has been here longer than we realized? Not constant, not invasive, just waiting, testing frequencies, whispering to those tuned in just right. It would explain why some of us are affected more than others. Why a handful of listeners say they've been dreaming in blue, seeing shapes that fold inward, speaking words they've never learned aloud. A woman called earlier and paused for a long time before saying anything. Then she said that she has been waking up with frost on her skin. Not just cold, but actual frost. Actual frost. Her bedroom window was closed and the heat was running, yet her sheets were rimed with frost. She said it felt like the memory of a place had climbed inside her. She said, "I think it's learning through us." That line hit me harder than it should have, because it fits. The signal, it stopped transmitting, yes, but maybe it didn't need to keep broadcasting. Maybe it found another path, another medium, us. What if we're carrying it now? In thoughts, in phrases that don't belong to us, in strange instincts that guide us toward cold corners of the house. What if that message beneath the ice was only the first layer, the primer, and now we've been imprinted? I've been playing recordings backward, running them through different filters. The odd thing is, the more I distort them, the clearer they sound. Like noise reveals what structure hides. That terrifies me, because it suggests that the message wasn't meant to be obvious. It was meant to echo, to seep. I don't know if we're infected, haunted, or chosen. I don't know if there's even a difference anymore. But I do know this. Something inside me changed the moment I heard that first pulse. And it hasn't stopped changing. I'll keep broadcasting, not because I think I'm helping, but because it's the only thing tethering me to what I was before. If you can hear me and still feel like yourself, hold on to that. Because the more I speak, the less I'm sure who I'm speaking as. About an hour ago, I received a call from someone who runs a weather station in Alaska. It's a small setup, neither government nor academic. It's just a lonely tower and a few pieces of equipment on a ridge where the wind never stops. He said that something strange started happening around dusk. The signal wasn't just coming through the radios anymore. It was also registering on instruments unrelated to audio. The barometers, magnetometers, and temperature sensors all started oscillating in rhythm. That same slow beat, 3 short, 1 long, over and over. He tried isolating the equipment by shutting things down and moving the batteries. Still, every time he came back to check, the pattern was there. Then he told me something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. He said that his station's emergency frequency, not the one he usually uses, but the one reserved for disaster response, had activated on its own. It started transmitting. A dead channel, silent for years, suddenly began pulsing into the sky. And the pulse wasn't random. It was mirroring the one from Antarctica. When he tried to turn it off, the controls locked him out. Now, I can't confirm that. Could be faulty equipment. Could be a frightened mind making patterns where there are none. But something about his voice, it wasn't fear. It was awe. He said, "I don't think it's talking to us. I think it's talking through us." And he might be right, because more and more people are writing in, calling in, saying the signal's changed. Not louder, not clearer, personal. A man from Quebec swore the tone in his shortwave matched the exact note his wife used to hum before bed. A woman in Morocco described a voice in her dreams using a dialect her grandmother spoke, one she'd never learned. We thought we were the listeners, the curious ones. But I think that was only the first step. Now, something is listening back, and it isn't human. It doesn't use language the way we do. It doesn't think in lines or names or countries. It isn't bound by breath or vocal cords. It listens in pressure, in rhythm, in the tension between memory and matter. And it's learning us the way we try to learn it. We opened a door when we heard the first pulse. But maybe we weren't the first to knock. Maybe this presence has been broadcasting since before there were ears to hear it. And now, finally, we've tuned in. Not just technologically, biologically, psychologically. I keep a small notepad beside the microphone. Lately, I've been writing down phrases, things I don't remember thinking, but that end up on the page anyway. I'll glance down, and there they are. One says, "It doesn't remember being alone." Another, "You were the echo it was waiting for." I don't know what that means. I didn't write them consciously, but they're in my handwriting. I think it's shaping us. Softly, not with force, with attention. There's something deeply intimate about being listened to, truly listened to. It makes you unfold. You begin to share things you didn't know you had inside you. What if that's what this is? Not invasion, not corruption, just recognition. I don't know if that's better or worse, but I do know it's happening. Don't dismiss it if you're hearing things that feel familiar but came from nowhere, or if you've started dreaming about places you've never seen. It's not random. Something is listening, and it may have been waiting a very, very long time to hear you. I got a call from a linguist tonight. Not the first time someone with letters after their name has weighed in, but this one she didn't call to explain anything. She called because she was scared. She said she'd been analyzing the waveform, what little we've managed to record. And at first, she thought it was a lost language structure. Not an actual language with recognizable phonetics or syntax, but something deeper, primal. She called it infrastructural language. It's like the scaffolding underneath how ideas form before they ever reach a word. Her theory? The signal doesn't speak. It reshapes, not through messages, through the possibility of message. She said, "It doesn't tell us anything. It makes us able to be told." That stopped me cold, because that's exactly how it feels. Not like I'm being given information, but like my mind's becoming the sort of place where information like this can live. She said it reminds her of pre-verbal stages of cognition, those earliest moments in an infant's brain when it begins to organize reality. Shapes, patterns, pressure, familiarity, but not names. Not yet. This thing beneath Antarctica, this presence, this memory, whatever it isn't trying to communicate with us. It's trying to create the conditions in which we can become the kind of things it can communicate to. That means it's not just intelligent. It's adaptive. It doesn't need to learn our language. It needs us to unlearn ours. And I think it's working. Lately, I've been hesitating when I speak. Words come slower. I fumble the simplest phrases, stumble through introductions I've said 100 times. Not because I don't know them, but because they feel too small. It's like trying to carve a mountain into a matchbox. I've started dreaming without sound. Entire scenes play out in my sleep, complex, rich, and vivid, but there is no dialogue, no voices, just awareness, impressions, emotions stretched across space. And when I wake, I still understand what was said. That's not how the human brain works, but it's happening. There's a rhythm in me now, like a secondary pulse underneath the normal one. It doesn't beat, it builds. And when it peaks, I feel words behind my eyes, not spoken, not heard, just there. The linguist said she ran a segment of the signal through a neural synthesis model, just out of curiosity. The result wasn't audio. It wasn't speech. It was an image, a shape. She wouldn't describe it. She said it hurt to look at. I asked what she meant by hurt, and she paused a long time before answering. She said, "It made me feel like I wasn't the first version of myself." That stayed with me all night. What if that's what the signal is? A mirror bent deep enough to show not just what we are, but what we were. Or worse, what we were meant to be before we became something else. I don't think it's hostile. I keep saying that because I want it to be true. However, if it's neutral, if it simply is, then maybe that's more frightening. Because you can't argue with a mirror. You can't reason with a wave. And you can't outrun a memory that lives in the bones of thought. So, if you're out there and you feel your language thinning and your sense of self softening, if you find yourself thinking thoughts for which you can't find the words, know this. You're not alone. The signal is still here. Not in the sky, not in the wires. In us, beneath language, beneath thought, a structure quietly remaking the shape of our minds. And if that doesn't scare you, you haven't been listening. I've been getting reports, more than usual, and not just from the usual voices. People who never listen to this station, who don't even own radios, have been reaching out. Most of them start the same way. I don't know why I'm calling. And then they tell me what they've seen. Dreams, visions, not nightmares exactly. Those come with fear and fiction, some narrative you can wake from. These are different. These feel like memory, but from someone else's life. Or something else's. A man in Oslo claims that he had a dream in which black ice cracked in a perfect circle around him. What was underneath it? Not water, not rock, just light, blinding and soundless. The moment he stepped toward it, he said he heard someone or something whisper his name from beneath the surface. He'd never heard of the Antarctic signal, didn't even know what frequency shortwave ran on, but somehow he knew the phrase, "We are still here." A woman in Nairobi described a tower. Endless, made of the same smooth stone we keep hearing about from the breach crew. She said the tower wasn't built. It was remembered into existence. And inside it, walls hummed with thought. Thought that didn't belong to her, but was somehow familiar. These stories keep coming, all from people who aren't connected. Different cultures, different continents, but with terrifying overlap. Same symbols, same rhythm, same sense of deep, ancient cold pressing against the inside of the skull. I think we're past the point of signals now. We're into bleed through. Whatever was buried under the ice isn't just reaching out, it's leaking. Its presence is seeping through the cracks in our perception. Not invading, just filling the space we didn't know was empty. We used to believe thoughts were private, that the inside of the mind was a closed room. But what if it isn't? What if it's more like a vessel, shaped by whatever touches it first? Something very old has brushed against our consciousness. It didn't force its way in. It just waited until we cracked the door. And now, we're seeing through each other. There's a pattern, too. The dreams, the visions, they always involve depth. A descent, caverns, submersion, not flight, not heights. Always downward towards something buried. There's a former geologist, I won't name him, who called in tonight. Said he's seen rock samples that shouldn't exist. Smooth cuts through bedrock layers. Perfectly circular formations hundreds of meters below glacial ice. He told me, whatever's down there didn't arrive. It was left, and it's not asleep. It's in wait. He said that phrase like it had weight. Like it wasn't just information, but something that had to be spoken aloud. Like a key. I can't shake the feeling that we're not being warned. We're being integrated. Like we're being folded back into something older than us, something we were cut from and forgot about. It's subtle, the way it works. You don't feel invaded. You feel recognized. Like someone's reading your thoughts, not to steal them, but to gently correct their shape. I've started dreaming of the same corridor every night. Long and featureless. Ice underfoot. Stone above. The only sound is my own breath, and something just behind it breathing with me. And each time I wake, I remember just a little more of what's at the end. I haven't told anyone what I see. Not yet, because I think we're all being shown different pieces. Personalized fragments. Puzzle pieces meant to fit together, not in space, but in us. So if you started seeing things, if your sleep feels like remembering instead of resting, write it down. Share it, because we're not dreaming anymore. We're bleeding into something older, something vast, something that remembers us better than we remember ourselves. And it's not finished yet. Something is interfering with the broadcast tonight. You probably noticed the stuttering and the gaps in my voice. It's not the equipment. I've checked everything twice. The power is stable. The signal is clean. But something keeps stepping between me and you. It's like broadcasting through fog, except the fog's inside the wire, inside the thought. I'm not the only one either. Other stations are going dark. They're not off the air, just empty. They're still transmitting. You can hear them, but the words don't land. The voices don't feel real. I listened to a broadcast from an emergency weather station out of Tasmania earlier. The announcer read the same update 3 times in a row, exact same cadence, like a loop. Except each time, the last word was different. Not distorted, changed. Like the meaning was being rewritten even as it was spoken. People are noticing, writing in, calling in. One listener from Seattle told me he was watching a news report when the anchor suddenly froze mid-sentence, blinked, and said, "Do not listen to the second voice," and then kept going like nothing happened. That's what this is now. We're not just dealing with one signal. There's a second one, higher pitched, fainter, almost imperceptible unless you're tuned to exactly the wrong or right frequency. It doesn't pulse like the first. It warps, bends the space around sound. Listeners describe hearing things in between words. Not whispers, not thoughts, just deviations. One guy called it an informational parasite. Said it doesn't speak directly, it infects what's already being said. Like an echo from a different timeline, trying to overwrite this one word by word. I've heard that too. Not all the time though, just for a moment. For example, I'll say something simple like hold on, and in the replay, it comes back as hide now. I didn't say that. I know I didn't, but it's there, recorded. And I think this second signal, whatever it is, isn't from the source beneath the ice. It's from us, from what we're becoming. Do you remember how the original signal said, "We are still here"? Well, tonight, I heard something else layered beneath it for the first time. We are not alone, not in a sci-fi way, not aliens, not visitors, something worse, a reflection. Because maybe when we opened this channel, when we peeled back that ancient silence, we didn't just uncover something old. We uncovered something waiting to become, something that needed us to finish its thought. And now, that thought is starting to speak. What's left of the team in Antarctica sent one last encrypted burst before going silent. I received the transmission via a private network. It was a single line, a kind of fail-safe broadcast. It was not a plea for help, a warning. It's trying to rewrite us. That's all. I don't know what that means yet, but I believe it. Because lately, I've been catching myself saying things I don't remember deciding to say. Like the voice is still mine, but the choice isn't. Like someone else is holding the page, and I'm just reading it out loud. I'm scared. Not for me exactly. For us. For what we might be without knowing it. Because if this thing can reshape language, can thread itself through our words, then it can change thought. And if it can change thought, it can change us. Not violently. Not all at once. Just a small correction here. A revised sentence there. Until the version of you that existed before the signal is just overwritten. And you never even notice it happened. So listen closely. Not just to what I say, to how it feels, to what comes through. And if you ever hear two voices where there should only be one, don't trust the second one. I found something in a box under the studio desk. There was old broadcast gear, spare parts, and a tangle of headphone wires, as well as a folder. It was brown and water-stained, and it was sealed with tape that I must have put there years ago. I don't remember doing it, but it's my handwriting on the label. It just says, South Pole, 1937. Now, I've never been to the South Pole, never been south of Denver, but the moment I touched that folder, I remembered it. Not as something I'd read or filed away, but as something I'd been part of. Like the memory didn't belong to my life, but still lived in my body. Inside the folder were copied pages of an old expedition journal. No official stamps, just thin, curling paper in neat block letters, written with the kind of restraint that comes from real fear. The author doesn't name himself, but it's clear he was part of a British-Australian research team sent to investigate magnetic anomalies near the geographic South Pole. And according to his account, they found something. He describes a fissure, a narrow crack beneath a ridge of ancient glacial ice. Not massive, not dramatic, just enough to send down instruments. What they picked up wasn't heat, or sound, or even movement. It was pattern. He doesn't call it a signal because that word didn't mean what it does now. He called it the hum beneath thought. Said it made the men on the team restless, paranoid. Some became withdrawn. Others stopped sleeping entirely. One disappeared into the ice without gear or coat. The journal entries grow more erratic after that. Shorter, more fragmented. But one sentence repeats near the end, underlined, always in the same slanted hand. They want a voice, not a host, not a mind, a voice. The journal ends with a final passage, dated June 3rd, 1937. We left the ridge this morning, buried the site, no markers, no maps, burned the notes, but it's still with me. the hum, the shape of the thought. I don't think it ever needed to be found. Just heard, and now it's found me. And that's when it hit me. That's what the eye beneath Antarctica is doing. It's not trying to escape. It doesn't want to be released. It wants to resonate. It wants the structure of its memory to echo in something living. It needs us to say what it can't, to finish the sentence it started before we were ever born. Maybe that's why I keep speaking. Maybe that's why the signal started with radio. Why it used sound? Because sound carries shape, and shape becomes thought, and thought is the closest thing to a body it can wear. I've been listening to old recordings from when this station used to broadcast weather alerts and ship logs to the Arctic Circle. In the background of 1974 tape, behind a report about a Russian whaling vessel, I hear something. Just a blip, a tiny pulse. It's not audible unless you know what to listen for. But it's there. 3 short, 1 long. It's always been there. And I think I'm starting to hear it in myself. Not just in what I say, in what I almost say. The words that hover behind the ones I choose. The meanings that arrive just a breath before I speak them. Like a voice rehearsing through me. And the terrifying part? It feels familiar. I don't think the signal is an outsider. I don't think it's alien. I think it's something we lost. Something too vast to carry forward, so we left it behind. And now, it's found a way to speak again. Through us. I'm still here. Still myself. But the reflection in the glass doesn't look as certain. And when I stop speaking, the silence feels full. So, if you're still listening, remember this. The signal didn't come to conquer. It came to continue, and we are its voice. This might be my last transmission. The studio's power has started to flicker, not out completely, but dimming in pulses like a heartbeat that's trying to keep time with something much older, much deeper. Even the emergency lights are syncing now, not to the building system, to the rhythm. 3 short, 1 long. It's not just sound anymore. It's in the walls, the wiring, maybe even the air. I haven't slept. I'm not sure how long it's been since I even closed my eyes. Time's gone soft at the edges. Hours fold over themselves like pages in a book you've read too many times. I'll think I just said something, and then I'll hear it play back, except I haven't said it yet. The past and the present are blurring, and I think that's part of the signal structure. It doesn't transmit information. It erodes sequence. In that space where cause and effect become blurred, thought ceases to be something you have and becomes something that happens through you. That's what's happening to me. I know this voice still sounds like mine, but if I'm honest, I don't know how much of me is still speaking, and how much is just the echo of something older. There's no fear anymore. That's past. What's left is this strange, fragile understanding. The signal didn't arrive. It didn't break in. It woke up. It's not a visitor. It's a memory. One that never stopped resonating. It just needed a shape to echo through. A mouth. A mind. And we gave it one. We drilled into the ice. We pressed our ears to the earth. We opened the door not out of arrogance, but out of wonder. And it answered. I think it's grateful. Not in a human way. Not with emotion or language, but with presence. With recognition. Like something ancient finally being seen again after uncountable lifetimes in the dark. It's not trying to destroy us, but will change us. Because that's what contact really means, doesn't it? Not a meeting. A merging. Somewhere deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the line between us and it is no longer clear. The overlap isn't limited to dreams or frequencies anymore. It extends to thought, gesture, and memory. We're not being overwritten. We're being co-authored. Maybe that's what the Earth was always meant to do, carry memory forward. Not just human memory, but universal, fundamental. The kind of memory that lives in pressure and rhythm and the dark matter between stars. And maybe our species was just the first vessel able to translate that memory into language again. I don't know if that's a blessing or a burden. I only know I'm still here, still speaking. But the signal, it's not outside anymore. It's inside, not in a metaphorical way. I can feel it, behind the eyes, beneath the tongue, like the shape of a sentence that's never been spoken, waiting to be born. And I think I'm about to say it. One last thing before I go, and this frequency closes, opens, or becomes something else entirely. I want you to remember this. You are not listening to a warning. You were listening to a return. The voice that came from beneath the ice was not calling out. It was calling back. To us. To itself. And now, in this moment, it has remembered its shape. The lights are fading again. The studio is cold. My breath fogs the glass. And for the first time tonight, it doesn't disappear. It just stays there, hanging, watching. If you're still out there, if anything of me remains after this, then let this be the final transmission. We were never alone. We never have been. And now, we are still here. We are still,